Let me ask you something. Have you ever looked at a building and thought, why is this designed like this? Who thought this was a good idea? I mean, why can't this door be locked? Why does it have to open outward? Why is this stairwell so wide, so empty, so useless looking? You walk through an apartment building, an office, a hotel, and you see all these rules everywhere. No storage in the hallway, no furniture near the stairs, no changes to this door, no changes to that window. Use this material, not that one. And honestly, at first glance, it all feels a bit ridiculous. Because in normal life, none of this seems necessary. Most days, nothing is on fire. Most days, everything works. The lights are on, the elevator works, people behave normally. So it's very easy to think, why am I being inconvenienced for something that probably won't happen? Let's be honest, that's what most people are really thinking. You want to make your apartment look nicer, but no, this wall needs to be fire rated. You want a cleaner, more minimal hallway, but no, nothing is allowed there. You want a door that feels solid and secure, but no, it can't lock the way you want. From a daily life point of view, these rules feel cold. They don't care about comfort. They don't care about beauty. They don't care about convenience. They feel anti-human. And I get why people complain. Because when everything is fine, fire safety feels like paranoia. It feels like designing your entire life around a worst-case scenario that may never happen. It's like wearing a helmet at home, like driving at 5 miles per hour everywhere, like planning every meal as if food poisoning is guaranteed. So, people ask questions like, why can't I just do it my way? Why is the government so strict about this? Why are fire inspectors always saying no? Do they even live like real humans? And here's the uncomfortable part. From a normal, everyday perspective, those questions make sense. If you only look at buildings when everything is calm, most fire regulations look excessive. Wide stairs that are almost never full, emergency lights you barely notice, heavy doors that are annoying to push, materials that are more expensive and less flexible. It feels like someone designed buildings for a problem that barely exists. And that's why people say fire codes are anti-human, because humans design things for comfort, efficiency, and convenience. Fire codes seem to ignore all three. They waste space, they add cost, they restrict freedom. So yeah, if you judge them using everyday logic, they don't feel friendly at all. But here's the key thing most people don't realize yet, and I'm not explaining it now, just planting the seed. Fire safety rules are not written for normal days. They're written for the exact moment when normal life completely collapses. And that's why there's such a huge gap between how they feel and why they exist. Because when you're calm, healthy, alert, and in control, these rules look stupid. But fire codes don't assume you are calm. They don't assume you are healthy. They don't assume you are alert. They don't even assume you know where you are. They assume the opposite. And that's what makes them feel so harsh. Right now, sitting comfortably, watching this video, it's very easy to think, I would never need this. Most people think that. Most people only see fire safety as a list of restrictions, things they can't do. What they don't see is the scenario these rules are secretly designed for. The scenario where people panic, where smoke moves faster than expected, where vision drops to almost zero, where sound is confusing, where people make bad decisions. In that world, comfort doesn't matter, aesthetics don't matter, personal preference doesn't matter, survival does. But again, where we're standing right now, that world feels distant and unreal. That's why rules feel inhuman, because they're not designed for humans at their best. They're designed for humans at their worst. So if you've ever felt that fire regulations were overkill, annoying, or even stupid, you're not wrong, at least from a normal life point of view. The problem is, normal life is not what fire safety is preparing for you. That mismatch between how we live and how fire codes think is exactly why they feel so anti-human. Let's flip the perspective for a second. Most people look at fire safety rules and think about one thing: themselves. I'm careful. I know my building. I'll react fast. I'm healthy. I'll be fine. And honestly, for you, that might be true. If a fire starts and you're fully awake, you know exactly where you are, your body works normally, your mind is clear, you probably can get out without much trouble. But fire safety rules were never written for that version of you. They were written for a building full of people who are not you. Think about it. In the same building as you, there might be someone who's elderly, someone who's injured, someone who's sick, someone who's drunk, someone who just woke up, someone who's never been in that building before. Fire codes don't get to choose who is inside when something goes wrong. They don't get to assume intelligence, fitness, or experience. They assume the lowest common denominator. Not because people are stupid, but because stress destroys good judgment. And fire is pure stress. In an emergency, people don't behave like they imagine they would. They don't calmly follow signs. They don't analyze options. They don't think logically. They freeze. They hesitate. They follow the crowd. They go back for their phone. They choose familiar paths even when they're wrong. This isn't opinion. This is observed behavior over and over again. So when people say, "Why does the building need this? I would never need it," what they're really saying is, "I trust myself." Fire safety doesn't. Not because it dislikes you, but because it knows you are not alone. A building is not designed for one smart, calm individual. It's designed for a group of strangers, all reacting differently under pressure with limited time. That's why rules feel unfair, because they don't reward competence. They don't say, if you're smart enough, you get more freedom. They say, no matter who you are, this is the minimum. Everyone gets the same restrictions, everyone follows the same paths, everyone uses the same exits. From an individual point of view, that feels insulting. From a group survival point of view, it's necessary. Here's another uncomfortable truth. Fire codes also assume that you might not be at your best, not morally, physically. You might be half asleep, disoriented, coughing, short of breath, temporarily blinded. Smoke changes everything. It lowers visibility fast. It irritates your eyes. It makes breathing harder. It messes with your sense of direction. Suddenly, that simple escape isn't so simple anymore. And fire safety rules assume that this version of you is the real one, not the confident version sitting at home watching a video. This is why things feel exaggerated. Wide stairs feel unnecessary until people slow down. Clear hallways feel wasteful until someone falls. Doors that open outward feel annoying until a crowd pushes. Fire safety rules are written for movement under stress, not movement under ideal conditions. And stress turns smart people into unpredictable ones. That's why fire regulations don't rely on people making good decisions. They rely on design forcing the right outcome even when decisions are bad. You don't need to think, you don't need to plan, you don't need to understand the building. You just move. And that's intentional, because in a real emergency, thinking is a luxury. So when you hear someone say, "Why does the code assume people are idiots?" The honest answer is, it assumes people are human. Humans panic, humans hesitate, humans follow habits instead of logic. Fire safety design accepts that reality instead of fighting it. And here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. Fire codes also assume that someone will mess up.
A door will be blocked, an alarm will be ignored, an exit will be crowded. Someone will go the wrong way. The system isn't built on perfection. It's built on redundancy. Multiple exits, extra width, clear separation, backup systems. Not because engineers love wasting space, but because they assume failure is inevitable. This is where a lot of frustration comes from. People see these rules and think, why am I paying for other people's mistakes? And the answer is simple, even if it's annoying. Because in a shared space, you don't get to choose who fails. And fire safety doesn't gamble on everyone doing the right thing. It designs for the moment when someone doesn't. So, no, fire codes are not designed for you as an individual. They're designed for the slowest person, the weakest moment, the worst decision, the highest stress, all happening at the same time. That's why they feel heavy-handed. That's why they feel inflexible. That's why they feel anti-human. Because they don't celebrate individuality, they protect collectives. And once you start looking at buildings this way, you realize something important. Fire safety is not about trusting people. It's about not needing to. And once you see that, a lot of stupid rules start to make a very uncomfortable kind of sense.
There's a silent assumption behind almost every fire safety rule, and most people never notice it. Fire codes assume that when a fire happens, everything else goes wrong too. Not some things, not a few things, everything. They don't assume a small, manageable problem. They assume a chain reaction. Power fails, lights go out, elevators stop, security systems shut down, people lose orientation. The building you think you know is no longer the building you're in. And this is where everyday intuition completely breaks. Because in normal life, we solve problems one at a time. If the power goes out, that's annoying, but manageable. If the elevator stops, you take the stairs. If it's dark, you turn on your phone flashlight. Fire safety assumes you don't get those clean, separate problems. It assumes they stack. Darkness plus smoke, crowds plus panic, noise plus confusion, limited time plus bad decisions. That combination is what kills people, not fire itself. Fire codes are built around that idea. They don't assume that alarms will be heard. They don't assume signs will be seen. They don't assume people will move in the right direction. They assume chaos. This is why buildings are designed to work without cooperation. You don't need to understand instructions. You don't need to see clearly. You don't need to trust technology. The space itself is supposed to guide you. That's why exits are shaped the way they are. That's why paths are separated. That's why materials are chosen so carefully. It's not about beauty or efficiency. It's about behavior under collapse. Here's something most people don't realize. In many fire scenarios, the fire itself is not the biggest problem. Smoke is. Smoke spreads faster than fire. It fills spaces. It blocks vision. It makes breathing painful. And once visibility drops, people don't move like rational adults anymore. They move like people who are scared and half blind. They stick close to walls. They follow the person in front of them. They turn back to familiar routes. Fire safety design assumes that behavior and builds around it. That's why stairwells are enclosed. That's why corridors are kept clear. That's why exit paths are predictable. Not because designers don't trust you, because they don't trust visibility. Another uncomfortable assumption. Fire safety rules assume help will not arrive immediately. Not firefighters, not security, not staff. You are on your own for the first critical minutes. Those minutes decide everything.
So the building itself becomes the system. Walls slow fire. Doors block smoke. Layout controls movement. Distance buys time. Time is the real currency here. Fire safety doesn't try to eliminate danger. It tries to delay it. Every second matters. Every turn matters. Every obstacle matters. And this is why so many rules feel extreme, because they are designed for a situation where there is no time to think, there is no time to coordinate, there is no time to fix mistakes. They assume no second chances. This is also why fire safety feels so unforgiving. There is no maybe it'll be fine. There is no we'll deal with it later. If something fails at the wrong moment, people die. So redundancy becomes non-negotiable. 2 exits instead of 1. Wide stairs instead of narrow ones. Fire-rated materials instead of cheaper ones. From a daily perspective, this looks wasteful. From a failure perspective, it's the only thing that works. Fire safety design is basically pessimism turned into architecture. It assumes someone will panic, someone will fall, someone will block a path, someone will choose the wrong door, and it builds anyway. This is why rules don't care about intentions. You might promise you'll never block a hallway. You might promise you'll keep the door clear. You might promise you'll react fast. Fire safety doesn't care, because the system cannot rely on promises. It relies on geometry, materials, and physics. Things that don't panic, things that don't freeze, things that don't make excuses. Once you see this, the tone of fire codes changes. They stop sounding bossy. They stop sounding paranoid. They start sounding realistic, not optimistic, not friendly, but honest. Fire safety assumes the worst version of reality so that people have a chance in it. And that's why these rules feel so detached from everyday life, because everyday life is not the scenario they're written for. They are written for the moment when control disappears. And once you understand that, the question stops being, why are these rules so strict? And becomes, what would happen if they weren't?
Let's stop talking in theory and look at real things people complain about. Because fire safety doesn't feel abstract. It feels annoying in very specific ways. Take stairwells. People always ask, why are staircases so wide? Why can't we put anything there? It's such a waste of space. From a daily perspective, they're right. Most of the time, stairwells are empty. They look oversized. They look unused. You walk through them and think, this could be storage. This could be nicer. This could be more efficient. But stairwells are not designed for normal movement. They're designed for crowd movement under stress. In a fire, people don't walk smoothly in single file. They hesitate, they slow down, they stop, they turn around. Someone trips, someone helps them, someone blocks the path without meaning to. A narrow stairwell turns that moment into a bottleneck. A wide stairwell absorbs it. That extra width isn't comfort, it's tolerance for mistakes. Now think about doors. People hate heavy fire doors. They're ugly, they're loud, they're annoying to push. And people ask, why does this door need to be like this? Why does it have to close by itself? Why can't I keep it open? Because fire doors are not about convenience. They're about compartmentalizing failure. Fire spreads fast. Smoke spreads faster. A closed door can buy minutes. Sometimes that's the difference between escape and collapse. Fire doors don't assume someone will remember to close them. They close themselves. Because in an emergency, memory disappears. Now let's talk about hallways. People love clean, minimal hallways. So naturally, they want to put things there. A shoe rack, a cabinet, a bike, a plant. It feels harmless until visibility drops. In smoke, people don't lift their feet normally. They shuffle. They feel their way forward. That small object becomes a trip hazard. One person falls, others pile up.
That's why hallways feel aggressively empty, not because designers hate personal expression, because fire safety assumes someone will be half blind. Another favorite complaint: why do exit doors have to open outward? Because crowds don't pull, they push. In panic, people lean into doors. They don't stop to figure out hinges. An inward opening door becomes a wall. Outward opening doors work even when people are scared, tired, or confused. Again, not elegant, but effective. And then there are materials. Why can't we just use whatever looks nice? Why all these restrictions on finishes, panels, and insulation? Because materials don't fail quietly. Some burn fast, some drip fire, some release toxic smoke. In a normal room, you don't notice the difference. In a fire, it defines the timeline. Fire safety materials are chosen not because they're beautiful, but because they behave predictably under heat. Predictability matters when everything else is unpredictable. Now here's the pattern across all these examples. Fire safety rules are not optimizing for beauty, efficiency, flexibility. They are optimizing for forgiveness. Forgiveness for slow movement, forgiveness for bad decisions, forgiveness for panic. They turn space into a buffer, and buffers look like waste until you need them. This is why so many rules feel cold. They don't adapt to individual behavior. They assume the worst behavior and move on. From a human point of view, that feels unfair. From an engineering point of view, it's the only way to scale safety. Because you cannot design for trust in a crowd. You design for physics. And physics doesn't care how careful you usually are. That's why fire safety looks strict, rigid, and unwelcoming. It's not trying to make life better. It's trying to make failure survivable. And once you see that, a lot of those stupid rules stop looking stupid. They just start looking honest.
At this point, it's tempting to say, okay, I get it. Fire safety is strict because things can go wrong. But here's the deeper issue. The real conflict isn't between fire codes and people. It's between how humans understand risk and how disasters actually work. Humans are terrible at judging low-probability, high-consequence events. We're wired for everyday danger, things that happen often, things we can see, things we've personally experienced. Fire doesn't fit that pattern. Most people will never experience a serious fire in their lifetime, so mentally it feels unreal, abstract, something that happens to other people. And because it feels distant, we discount it. We think, it won't happen here, it won't happen to me, not today. That mindset works fine, until it doesn't. This is why people skip seatbelts for short trips, why they ignore smoke detectors with dead batteries, why they block exits just for now. Our brain prioritizes comfort over unlikely danger, not because we're stupid, because we're human. Fire safety rules are frustrating because they fight this instinct. They force you to care about something you don't feel. They demand sacrifice in the present for a future that might never arrive. And that always feels unreasonable. Another uncomfortable truth: people judge risk based on control. If we feel in control, we feel safe. I know this building. I know where the exits are. I'll react fast. But in a fire, control disappears quickly. Smoke takes away vision. Noise takes away hearing. Panic takes away decision-making. The situation doesn't ask if you feel confident. It just unfolds. Fire safety design doesn't trust feelings of control. It trusts patterns. It looks at what happens again and again across different people, cultures, and buildings. And those patterns are not flattering. People underestimate danger. People overestimate their ability. People follow others even when it's wrong. Fire safety rules exist because human intuition fails consistently under stress. That's why they feel so rigid. They don't adapt to your confidence level. They don't relax because you feel prepared. They assume your instincts will betray you. And they're usually right. This is also why people call these rules overkill.
because overkill only makes sense when you imagine the average outcome. Fire safety is designed for the extreme one, the one where timing is bad, the one where multiple failures overlap, the one where people hesitate just long enough. That's the scenario our intuition refuses to picture because it's uncomfortable, so we push it away. We say the rules are too much, too strict, too pessimistic. But fire safety is not pessimism, it's pattern recognition. It doesn't care how rare something is, it cares how deadly it becomes when it happens. And here's the part that really explains the tension. Fire safety doesn't ask, what's the most likely outcome? It asks, what's the worst outcome we're willing to accept? Those are very different questions. Humans think in averages, fire safety thinks in limits. And designing around limits always feels excessive until the limit is reached. So when people say fire codes are anti-human, what they really mean is they don't match how I feel about risk. And that's true. They don't. They were never meant to. They exist precisely because feelings are unreliable under pressure. Fire safety replaces intuition with structure. It replaces trust with geometry. It replaces optimism with time buffers. And that trade-off is uncomfortable because it reminds us of something we don't like to admit. We are not as rational as we think, especially when it matters most. That's why these rules feel harsh. They expose a gap between how we imagine ourselves and how we actually behave. And instead of comforting us, they quietly design around our weaknesses, not to insult us, but to keep us alive when instinct fails.
At the end of the day, fire safety rules aren't trying to be friendly. They're not trying to make your life easier. They're not trying to make buildings feel cozy. They're not trying to earn your approval. They exist for one simple reason. Fire doesn't negotiate. It doesn't care if you're careful. It doesn't care if you're experienced. It doesn't care if you've lived there for 10 years or 10 minutes. It doesn't care how smart you are, how confident you feel, or how unlikely you think it is. Fire is fast. Fire is chaotic. Fire doesn't wait for explanations. And fire safety rules quietly accept that reality. They don't assume heroism. They don't assume calm thinking. They don't assume perfect behavior. They assume fear. They assume confusion. They assume mistakes. And then they design anyway. That's why these rules feel cold, because they don't respond to how we want the world to work. They respond to how it actually works when things fall apart. In normal life, this feels excessive. In emergencies, it feels invisible until it isn't. Most of the time, you'll never notice fire safety. The exits stay empty, the stairwells stay quiet, the doors stay closed, and that's the point. Good fire design is boring. It only becomes meaningful in moments nobody wants to experience. So when fire regulations feel restrictive or annoying or even anti-human, remember this: they're not designed for comfort. They're designed for the moment when comfort disappears. They don't exist because someone expects disaster. They exist because someone refuses to gamble with lives. Fire safety isn't about controlling people. It's about respecting how fragile we become under pressure. And maybe that's why it feels harsh, because it's honest about something we'd rather ignore. Sometimes the world is not forgiving, so the design has to be.